sling those beers. Okay, so if we're going to decide to clean the heart, first thing we got to do is bring back to awareness all that they owe me. I got to be aware of this again, all right? And these things are kept in kind of detail. You did this to me. Somewhere written in there, I've got, you did this to me. It was wrong. You mistreated me. You owe me. And much of the time, there's actually something quite specific that they owe. All right, what is owed?
Closure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our new age, newfangled psychological term for it. Huh? You gotta give me closure on this. No, I don't. You want closure, you go close the damn thing yourself. I don't want closure, I want out of here. That will close it off for me. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's one of my favorite terms, because you know what that actually is, don't you? What closure is? You are obligated to assist me out of the conflict that you created in my being. You've got to end the conflict for me. I can't do it myself. Well, perhaps I could do that. On the other hand, I'm perfectly capable of ending this conflict all by myself. I do not require your assistance, and I'm tired of being here, and I'm out of here. I don't need no help with the conflict part. But you do realize that's what's being said.
No, I've done that. I've led somebody. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I expect you to end the conflict that you have created in me, right? So closure is often happens when somebody else wants to leave and you don't want him to leave, but at the same time you do want him to leave. So you're in conflict about the situation, and they take matters into their own hand, and they actually leave, and now they owe you closure, right? To help them get to the point where they want you to leave too. Oh, I don't really give a damn whether you want me to or not. I'm gone, okay? So, I don't know. I guess probably the best way to give them closure is to kick them. Then they'll want you to leave, won't they? They'll have made up their mind. So if somebody ever demands closure to you, that's my recommendation. It's probably the fastest method. Just give them a kick in the butt. I'll be happy to see you out the door.
I actually had a girlfriend once to whom I was whining, pretending to be very high-minded about how I just couldn't stand hurting people I wanted to leave in relationships. And she said, don't make such a fuss about it. You just do something really unpleasant, and they get really pissed at you, and they're pleased that you're gone. They throw you out.
Precisely.
That's over.
It's the easiest method I know of to get out of something. That's exactly right. I've used it many a time. I absolutely agree with her. Don't make such a fuss about it. There's a very simple method. The other one I love these days is validation. That was the other big term, right? don't you invalidate me. Now, precisely how would you do that? How would you invalidate me exactly? Am I an equation that you can just add a certain number to me and I will suddenly become zero? How would you do that? Tell me I'm wrong? That my point of view is wrong? How the hell does that invalidate me? As far as I can tell, that's what it means. You invalidate me by telling me my point of view is wrong. Well, I don't care what you think. That's all I can tell that people are talking about in this whole validation thing. How dare you tell me my point of view is wrong? Okay. So I gotta walk around the world trying to remember never to insinuate that anyone else's point of view is wrong when I'm invalidating them. Then I get to go on this list. You invalidated me. Now you owe me. What am I going to have to do to pay that back? That's the game here, okay? We have got to bring back to conscious awareness all the stuff we're carrying around. You did this to me, you did that to me, you did the next thing to me. And now you owe me. What am I sitting around? This is part of the burden of having this is you're sitting around waiting to be paid. How does that feel? Sitting around waiting for a bunch of people who never pay you back to pay you. You get into a weird state of existence. When's it going to happen? See if you can just make them aware again and put them on a piece of paper or something somewhere so they're not just carried around in this unconscious way. A lot of the time, every time you see the person that you're waiting to get paid, it's for kind of the first thing that happens, isn't it? This sort of grudge against them. You just walk into a room where they are. I've heard people say, I don't even want to meet outside their house after what they did to me. I don't even want to see the place where they live after what they did to me. What's that? Except, I just don't want to be reminded of this. I'm going to carry it around for the rest of my life, but I don't even want to be reminded of it. I just want to be burdened with it forever. That's the first thing. I've got to bring this back to awareness so I can deal with it. And it isn't just an unconscious thing that's going on all the time. That's always the first thing you see. And it's a very long list. It may take you a while to do this. The older you get, the longer it is. And we're still setting the stuff up, huh? Every single day we probably add something to the list, don't we? Now, the next thing is to see the illusion of this payment. That's a little experiment we all going to, I think, do for ourselves. It sounds very reasonable. You stepped on my toe. You owe me an apology. Fine. So the person apologizes. That help? Does that end it? How many of you have been surly to somebody who made a wrong phone number, even though they apologized?
That's a good example.
It sure is. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of wrong numbers. How often, even if the person is actually one of the few who apologizes and doesn't act like it's your fault that they called you the wrong number, are you surly with them anyway because they disturbed you? What can they do to make up for the fact that they accidentally dialed the wrong number and disturbed you? You see, that's all this is about, isn't it?
I was thinking about that the other day, I swear to God, because I called the wrong number. I apologized to the lady, she was so gracious about it. And I thought, wow, that's really rare.
Yes, it is. Although I usually give some pretty gracious apologies myself. I do understand I've really upset them over really nothing. But I usually make a big deal out of apologizing myself when I do it. And yeah, on rare occasions, you get someone who, as you say, is quite gracious about the whole thing. Not very damned often, though, huh? And I do apologize for it, and I get back this. But then think about yourself. How many times have you done that on the rare occasion when somebody does apologize and say, you know, I'm sorry I disturbed you. Didn't mean to. Did that make up for it? Or you still got this account against some unknown person on the other end of the phone who now owes you for using the thing you put in to get phone calls with, unauthorized. That's the next thing we got to see. Is this sounds very reasonable. You hurt me. Now, if you would just make amends and pay for this fact, then I'd call it off and say, okay, it's all right that you hurt me. That sounds very reasonable, doesn't it? When has it ever happened in reality, though? That somebody did actually try to make up for it, and maybe you even dictated the terms. And then you said, okay, it's all over, it's forgiven, I'll forget all about it as though it never happened. No big deal. When did that ever occur? Maybe very occasionally, huh? But how many times did somebody try to make up for it and whatever they did just wasn't good enough? It wasn't sincere. I've heard that one a lot. I might believe you if it were sincere. But you didn't mean it when you apologized. Okay, let me figure out how I can make this sincere now. Okay, was that sincere enough? Yes. But it wasn't good enough. No, I want you to do this too. You ever been through this? It just don't work that way, does it? What would be great enough? That's what we've got to see for ourselves. What could they really do to make up for the hurt that they caused me, which is my point of view, huh? This is just a fiction. And sometimes it even happens that the person tries to do something that we still don't take it off the list. We're going to apparently carry it forever. This is a lie. If they made up for it. I'll tell you, the funniest thing that ever happened, in my opinion, on this particular subject. I just got such a kick out of this. But years ago, I used to tell people that one of the 12 steps in 12 steps programs was wrong. It was an error.
Making amends?
Huh?
Make amends?
No. Nothing wrong with that one. It was an error and did cause a little bit of difficulty for the folks who used the 12 steps. Although the 12 steps were a great thing and they certainly did assist a lot of people to do what they needed to do. I made the mistake of saying that around somebody who was actually doing the 12 steps. At the time, I did not know that. I don't tell it to people who are doing the 12 steps. I really don't want to interfere with what they're doing. It was an error. I didn't realize it. I said it, they happened to be in the group of people I said it to, and they took considerable exception to it. And ranted and raved for a considerable period of time, demanded that I tell them which one, which I declined to do. I just did not want to get into it anymore, and went on and on and on about it, and basically left hating my guts. So, lo and behold, 6 or 7 years later, I run into them again in another group of folks. And they've forgotten all about this whole thing. Until finally they said, I remember you. You're that guy that said there's a mistake in the 12 steps. And I said, yeah, that's right. We had quite a little fight over it. And they said, I have been thinking about you for years. Why? Well, I need to make amends for how I treated you when you said that. No, you don't. Really, please. You really don't. It's okay. It's no big deal. I don't care. No. I must do this. Okay, fine. You go ahead. So they tell me, all these things to make amends for the way they mistreated me so they could pay me back and I could forgive them, which I told them was unnecessary because I already had. It was over and done with as far as I was concerned. And then at the end of the whole thing, I will never forget this. They said, by the way, which step is it? And we went through it all again. They got pissed at me, screamed and yelled, ran, told me what an asshole I was and sucked out of the room. To me, that was the most blatant case of this that I've ever seen. And I didn't even have a debt on the subject to get paid back. This whole game was a waste of time. Really, what difference does it make? Just decide I'm an idiot and walk off. It's working for you. What's the problem? The interesting thing is that they wanted to make amends to me for an account that I did not even have. You understand? I'm kind of used to that, saying things to people that pisses them off, and I didn't hold it against them. It didn't change my point of view one bit about them or anything else. I'm kind of used to it. I had no account on the subject. So they want to pay me back something that they don't even owe me. But the fact is that I owe them. Isn't that right? Because I mistreated them. They were the one with an account. I did tell them, I'm really sorry I did it, to be honest with you. I normally do not say that around folks who are doing the 12 steps. I have a tremendous respect for the 12 steps and what folks do with it. And I would not want to interfere with that. And I'm actually very, very sorry that I said it around you, because it doesn't matter. I respect what you're doing. And my little quibble with one aspect of it is just totally irrelevant. I went through this whole thing, you see, when they asked me to talk about it again. So I'd really rather not. I just would rather not. No, I insist. It was actually the other way around, wasn't it? I owed them. I made every effort to pay them back. It seemed reasonable to me at the time. It wasn't good enough. Apparently the only way I could pay it back was to totally change my mind and not know what I know. Perhaps. I don't even know if that would have done it. What could have done it? That's that invalidation thing again, isn't it? If you tell me what I'm doing is wrong, you've stolen from me the thing that's saving my life. I don't see why that's so. If it's saving your life, it's saving your life. I don't see how I can take that away from you, even if I wanted to. Anytime you don't agree with me, you have harmed me. That is one of the beliefs that maintains this accounts receivable list. The mere fact that you disagree with me has damaged me, and now you owe me. Now that's the next thing I got to do. Start checking out the illusions that let me set this stuff up in the first place. And answer one of the most interesting questions I ever looked at. Can anyone ever mistreat me? Is that even possible? Could that just be a big dream? And in fact, it has never happened. No one has ever mistreated me. Period.
Not even as a kid?
Yep. That's exactly right. And to be honest with you, that's where I started. Boy, did I have a lot of accounts receivable against the parents. At the time when I decided to do this, they probably were the bulk of the list. And that was one of the most difficult things that I ever did, was look back at that childhood and say, you know what? I was wrong. They did not mistreat me. They really didn't. I still don't like what I went through. But I no longer see it as them mistreating me. And I did that for my own sake. I couldn't afford to carry that around anymore. I just couldn't afford to. It did not matter to me who was right and who was wrong and any of that stuff anymore. I just saw how carrying that burden of how I've been victimized, and now unfortunately, everybody owes me, because a lot of folks who've been victimized in childhood, that's the way they feel. Every damn person they run into is supposed to make up for what happened to them in their childhood. I don't know, most people probably aren't too interested in doing that. But boy, one lays the trip on them anyway, huh? You guys owe me. You gotta treat me different than you do everybody else. How many times have you heard that from somebody who feels really hurt in life? You know? You got to treat me different because I'm damaged merchandise. You're right, I will. I will return you as soon as the opportunity. That's what I do with damaged merchandise. How about you? I'll send you back to the factory you came from. I've been told that many times. How about you? I'm damaged merchandise. You got to be too careful with me. No, I don't. No, I really don't. I do not have to make up for all of your hurt in life. It really, I promise you, is not my job. Nobody appointed me to that job. Said, Phil, we want you to take on the task of making up to everyone on planet Earth for all of their past pain. It's a big job, but you can do it. Yeah, that's the Mission Impossible theme, right? You get a little tape recording that self-destructs, and it gives you an impossible job, but of course you can carry it off, right? No, I can't do that job. Nobody assigned me to it anyway, and I'm not even going to try. But I was doing that to folks. I could see how I was kind of carrying around this thing that said, you know, you sort of, everybody owes me. I was really badly mistreated. And so now you got to do extra special things with just me, you know, and the other people like me, of course. I was sick of it. I was just sick of it. But I couldn't stop it because I felt that way. I saw things that way. But I thought it was a real interference with anything I wanted to do in life, because honest truth is people just ain't going to go along with that, except a few screwballs, and I don't want to know. In my opinion, anybody who did go along with that, it was not somebody I wanted to associate with. So yes, that's where it started for me. I was not mistreated in childhood. And that was a very difficult thing to see, but it's true. I cannot find an instance when I've ever been mistreated in this life. I can't find it. I went looking. Of course, I went looking with the intent of proving it wrong as a theory. So I went through a lot. See if I could find a flaw in the idea that I had been mistreated. And sure enough, every time I could. If I can ever get that one through my head, maybe I can clean all this up from the past and stop adding to it for the future. That's why many years later, when the guy screamed and yelled at me about the little 12-step trip, there really was no account set up. He didn't mistreat me, nor did I mistreat him. I made a mistake, and I said something that would have been better I'd left unsaid. That's life. It happens. He didn't mistreat me for doing it. It just didn't. That isn't what happened. So it never went. It never got written here as this guy owes me. You understand? It's just one of those little unpleasant episodes in life that you walk off from. That's it. It's just unpleasant, that's all. And to be honest with you, most of the unpleasantness was trying to make sure that I hadn't done any harm. That is the last thing I want to do, is when someone is using the 12 steps to get that monkey off their back, is interfere with them. I don't care about right or wrong anymore. I care about what they're trying to do. And most of the unpleasantness was just trying to dance my way out of this one without leaving damage. That's it. That was the big only concern. Can I get out of this one without hurting this person, damaging them?
You landed.
Mm-hmm. Well, apparently I did, because I met them several years later. If that wouldn't have been true, I'm not trying to say that I would have, but it can happen, you know. They had gotten sober, and they hadn't gotten over it, but so what, you see? I was one on a very long list of people who owed them, but at least they had that monkey off their back, you see. And that was really the only concern. I don't care whether they hate me or not. That would be an interesting illusion to see through, wouldn't it? I have been mistreated. And now the world owes me. Because many of us feel that way. It's not just a specific thing. We now feel that life owes us something to make up for it.
Can you see through that one without agape?
Don't know. I honestly don't know. I can give you the words that, in my opinion, make it perfectly clear that if you're willing to investigate it, you can certainly see the truth of these words. And it's just very simple. All anyone has ever done has been themselves, including me. That's just all there is to it, isn't it? They weren't mistreating me, they were being themselves. If someone, while being themselves, does things I don't like, with the exception of childhood, it's really quite easy to deal with most of the time. I simply don't associate with them anymore. Most of the time, that is an easy way to deal with it, isn't it? Nobody tied me down and said I had to stay here. Most of the time. Childhood does seem to be the exception to that, but it was certainly true about the parents. They simply were not mistreating me. They were being themselves, living out their own life. It was a little rough on all of us. I simply do not see that there was any intent to mistreat me. They were having a rough time. They had a hard life. And I was kind of incidental to the whole thing. That's all there is to it. They were living their life. I was a part of it for a period of time. I was quite overjoyed when that ended. So when you really look at the situation, what's really going on is that I am setting myself up as a judge and jury and saying, I have the right to judge you. And while you are being yourself, if you do not do it in a way that satisfies me, I will convict you and assign sentence. That's really what this whole thing is about, isn't it? I am judge, jury, sentencer, and I guess convictioner. I will even be the one that carries out the sentence. Because your way of being you doesn't satisfy me, and I feel competent to judge that. I feel that I am in a proper position to be your judge. Because that's all that's really going on. I'm busy being me. You're busy being you. And we like dictating to each other how we ought to be. Isn't that about right? And then deciding that if you don't go along with my ought to be, of how you ought to be, you owe me. I'm disappointed because the you that you are isn't the you that I wanted you to be. I'm hurt. I found something to blame it on. Tag, you're it. Now pay up. Now, really, when you come right down to it, that is the weirdest game I've ever heard, isn't it? all of us walking around here, judge and jury, passing sentence on everybody else about how they and who they ought to be. And then expecting them to buy the sentence and pay up.
Pretty weird.
It's the bizarrest game I've ever heard of. I don't want to play this game anymore. I sure can't stop you from doing it, but I don't want to play this game anymore. That is weird. I don't want to be your judge. I just don't want to do it. You be you any way you like. If it bugs me, I will deal with the fact that it bugs me, because I really suspect that that's sort of my thing to deal with, not yours. What gave me the right to impose on you my idea of how you ought to be? I sure ain't giving you that right. I don't want you doing that to me. I do not want you deciding how I ought to be and then trying to force me to do it. I do not want that. I will get very disturbed if you try to do that. I don't like it. But I think it's okay if I go around doing it to everybody else. Isn't that interesting? And yet I don't know a single person who likes it when you do it to them. Except for a few who begged for it. But I really do consider them to be pathological exceptions. And I try to steer clear of folks like that. I think they've got an illness. And I don't really want to deal with it.
What do you mean?
They're ill. They're mentally ill to walk around asking other people to tell them how they ought to be. I think they've got an illness.
Probably number 3.
I don't care which number it is. They're sick. That's what this game really boils down to. It's not about mistreatment and so on. It's about the fact that I was hurt. I decided that I was capable of judging you and declaring that how you are is wrong. And that you damn well better change it for me.
Phil?
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your response. I was reading the Course in Miracles, and it says if you really looked at the sentence you really wanted to impose, it would be you want the death penalty for that.
Oh yeah.
If you really were honest.
Much of the time, that's true. It's not always true. It's like anything else. There are degrees to this thing, but much of the time, yes, I honestly do believe that the only thing that they could do to make up for it would be to drop dead. And personally, I think you'd still hold a grudge against them. It would not be enough. So, to be really, really blunt, I think it's actually worse than that. I think you want them to suffer endlessly. Dropping dead really isn't good enough, is it? That's an easy out. So I think that part of the Course in Miracles is actually wrong, to be honest with you, buddy. I think what you really want is to see them suffer for it for a very long time. And I can understand why people made up the idea of hell. They couldn't get it here, so they had to imagine it existed somewhere. And you know damn well that that's true, that there are a lot of people in this world who gloat on the fact that so-and-so is going to hell. Isn't that right? You've heard them do it. It's okay, they'll get theirs for all eternity. But honestly, I think that's what people want. Dropping dead isn't good enough. It's just too easy and out. I want to see you suffer. In front of my face. I want to gloat while you suffer.
I got a question.
Okay?
The seems to be a process similar to, well, it seems to be disidentification with the belief that such and such owes me.
The belief that what?
That some person owes me for something they've done to me in the past. Normally this one, if he doesn't get it on the first time or the second time, I can usually get it by the third time on just identifying pretty, I haven't had anything I haven't been able to identify from so far. When I'm sitting here trying to do this and I'm not having any luck, what does one do if they don't succeed?
Yeah, speak up just a tad. What does one do for what?
If they don't succeed.
What?
With the disidentification. If you can't disidentify.
Sure you can. Why can't you? And you just told me that this is a theoretical question. What are you really trying to answer here? Because you told me that...
It's not really theoretical. It's about, well...
You told me that every time you've managed so far, that's pretty theoretical to me.
Yes, for that. I'm picturing, okay, I've got a person in mind here that this one is assigned an accounts receivable to.
Okay.
I've gone through it and I've said this one chose to...
No, you got to see it. You can't play word games. It's something you just got to see, okay? You can't talk yourself into it logically and rationally, okay? It won't work. That's what you're really telling me. This is not about disidentifying. This is saying, what do I do if I can't convince myself with words?
Yeah.
Well, don't use that method. It's a dumb method.
Okay.
Don't do that. I'll tell you what I did with the folks. I started asking questions. I didn't really know my parents. I didn't know them at all. All I knew was, this weird family life that we lived together. I didn't know them as a person the way I would know anybody else in the world. I had no clue about their history, really, except a few little snippets here. I just did not know them. You understand what I'm saying?
You asked the real people real questions.
Yes. I got to know about them. I learned about their life. I asked them about their childhood so I can understand what they went through when they grew up. I asked about the way they felt about certain things. I got to know them. And what I found out was very simple. It's all well and good for me to say what they did was horrible, and well, perhaps it was. I don't know. But the next step is, and they should have done something else, which really means I believe they could have done something else. And after I got to know them, I discovered they really couldn't. It was impossible for them to behave any other way than the way they did. They were incapable of anything else. How can I demand that someone do what they cannot do?
How do you come to that realization about someone who's dead or so far?
It is rougher, isn't it? So I'd recommend you start with a living person, and then maybe it'll be a little easier with the folks you can't do that with, okay? Start with what you can do. Because, yeah, that's tough with somebody you can't even talk to no more and get some info from, huh? Then start somewhere else.
I bet you could do some things, though.
And maybe, yeah, you can, but maybe if you get a little insight into the whole thing and you start checking out, and in every case it turns out that that's what's going on, okay, is they're just being themselves, and they can't do any differently. But then with that dead person, you'll just look and say, you know what, I bet it's probably true about them, and that'll be the end of it. Don't start there. That one's really rough doing it with folks who are dead. But that is kind of where you end up getting at. If you check out, 25 cases, and every time that's what you end up finding out is they could not have done differently. The whole lie is you could have done differently and didn't. And that's what makes it mistreatment, isn't it? You did that on purpose. You did it to hurt me. And you check out over and over and over again and find out that's just not true. It is just not true. And at a certain point, you just look at the damn list and go, get rid of it. I'm sick of this. I don't want to go through every single person on this list just to find out the same thing. And you sort of get it through your head, okay? And it's over. Maybe you'll never actually need to do it with that dead person. See what I'm saying? I mean, I'm really serious. You do this time after time after time after time, and you get the same answer every time. At a certain point, it kind of dawns on you, this is the answer to the question, okay? You don't have to go on researching it anymore. It's like, okay, I got my answer. Every single one I look into, that's what I find out. They couldn't do anything differently. That's just a weird idea I have in my head. You could have been different, and for some reason you would not be different. And I've never found that to be the case. I still don't like what was done. I think it was excessive and completely unnecessary. Okay, but I can't hold a grudge about it anymore because I can't see that they could have done anything else.
And how do you know that that's not what they should have done? That it was for the best.
I don't remember even saying whether it was for the best or not. I just said a fact for me. I still can't say that I enjoyed the trip. I just don't believe that it should have been different. Or even, honestly, could have been different. And you're quibbling about nothing. I've repeatedly said that I wouldn't trade it for anything. I see a tremendous value in it. And apparently, if someone says that I was disturbed by it and found it unpleasant, then they cannot value it. And so I think you're the one with problems bringing up, what if it wasn't for the best? Of course it was. What does that mean that it can't be unpleasant and disturbing? Except that you have this weird-ass belief, you see, that anything that's unpleasant, disturbing, cannot be valued. And I disagree with you. I don't see that to be the case. I do believe that answered your question and disturbed you a tad. Not true?
It answered the question. That's
Okay.
just not what I wanted to hear.
Excuse me?
Just not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. So you have an alternative?
Yeah, I'll just stay stuck.
Okay. Okay. That is as best I can tell the facts, okay? I do know that it's true for me. I can sure look at my own life and the times when I did what I consider to be some pretty reprehensible things. At the time of doing them, I really couldn't do anything else for one reason or another. If I could have, I would have, to be blunt. like particularly having to say that, but it's true. That's all I could do at the time. Even if it was intentionally going out and getting vengeance and so on, which you'd think really is mistreating somebody, huh? That was all I was capable of at the time. That was the best my understanding and consciousness and awareness could do, is say, I hate your guts and I'm going to get you. And I couldn't do any differently at that time. I certainly hope that I've grown a tad since then, and that that's not true today. But that was true of all the things that I looked at where I owed amends myself. Okay, I couldn't do any differently at the time. And looking at that did help me to see how that was true for others. Well, sure, it's easy for me to set up an idea they could have done differently. But I sure know there were times when I couldn't. Theoretically, you could claim it, but not in reality. And the cases that I did investigate with as much diligence as I could, I basically found out the same for them. They simply couldn't. I couldn't do any differently. As far as I'm concerned, that wipes out the whole issue.
Phil,
Mm-hmm.
the reason I said what I said was...
Oh, I know. You always have a justification and
Yeah,
a reason.
yeah, I do.
And we always have to listen to it, whether we want to or not. Right? Yes, we do, because
Okay.
you won't stop and not let us. So.
That when I look at stuff like that as not just they couldn't have done anything differently, that's who they were. It's like they did what they did, and it was the most wonderful, fantastic thing. Because
Didn't you just say that a few minutes ago?
Yeah. But it's not like this sort of. It's just like it's fun. That's my point. And it's not like
And
this.
why do you feel this compulsion to make this point? What is disturbing you so much about what I'm saying that you just have to make this point?
It felt like such a. That there was this resignation that there was like
Okay.
angst. That they
And
couldn't
what
have
is
been
your
different.
compulsion that all the rest of us must feel precisely what you feel? Okay, it's a wonderful feeling. Good.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for you.
That's my point.
Why do you have this compulsion that I have to feel it too? Like, who the hell made you God?
I was making the point that it's like
I heard your point. I don't think I missed your point. I think I repeated your point. I think you are ignoring my point. Well, it's interesting that you're the only one allowed with a point of view, apparently. Well, I have an alternative point of view. Who said that you get to go around forcing this crap down our throat? Just because you declare it good. And why would you want to do that?
I found that the stuff that made me happy with what I used to think was painful and something that
I get the picture. I'm
Yeah.
asking you why you have a compulsion to force us to do it too. Your way. I'm not asking you what your way is or why you like it so much. I grant you that. You're evading the question.
I thought it would, if I found it useful to me, and
Right, so therefore all the rest of us must swallow it. And you are still not telling me what the hell's going on that you feel is compulsion to do this. I totally understand the situation. You do not need to keep explaining the situation to me. It is not self-evident what is motivating you to do it, and I find it very bizarre behavior personally. Hey, don't get troubled about it.
I'm trying to think what that might be.
Yeah, please answer that question. This messianic missionary zeal sort of sucks. The world is full of too many missionaries who want to shove their version of reality down, and maybe their version is just the most wonderful thing in the world, but don't be so quick to shove it down everybody's throat. I actually personally agree with you. I still want to get across another aspect of the thing. That's one aspect of it. And I don't disagree with it. You know damn well I don't disagree with it, but you want to shove it down my throat anyway. But I want to get across another aspect of the thing. You have got to see the illusion in the mistreatment itself. That's just all there is to it. It didn't happen. If you can go on to even see that it was a wonderful thing, great. If that's the way that you want to get rid of all of this stuff, great. I don't have a quibble with it. I don't care how you do it, to be honest with you. I really don't. I'm just asking you to get rid of all this stuff. But I don't get the compulsion to say that your way is the only way. I really don't. Your way is a wonderful way.
I take your point. It's worth looking into. It feels that way.
The next thing we got to look at is the whole idea of if I can see the illusion in this game that I played where I'm saying you mistreated me, therefore you owe me. Now if you never mistreated me in the first place, then you obviously don't owe me nothing, do you? Now, that's what I can do, is see the illusion in this. Okay. And I actually do agree with Mark. Those things that are so-called mistreatment are incredible gifts and opportunities that we have chosen to reject because they weren't put in the box that we liked, which is my favorite way of saying it. You package up a gift, but you put it in a box that I find objectionable, so take it back. Bring it back when you find a prettier box to put it in. That's the part that we have to do. Get to the point where we can be a little bit more objective about this and see that the mistreatment never occurred. It just didn't happen. It's even more interesting when you get to the point where you realize that, at least as an adult, this isn't quite so true as a child, but as an adult, most of the times when I was mistreated, it's because I expected something different of you than you actually did. In other words, I expected you to be someone else, and you refused. You insisted on being yourself. And you didn't do anything at all. I actually did it to me, because I couldn't be bothered to get to know you. That's not so true as a kid. I don't have that choice of picking my companions and whether I get to know them or not, and so on. They sort of greet me on arrival, don't they? I don't have a lot of say in the matter, but it certainly is true in later years. I associate with someone and I can't be bothered to find out what kind of person they are, and then I'm disappointed when they're not what I expect. And this is whose fault exactly? It even gets sillier when you start looking at the stuff as an adult, when you realize that they didn't do anything, I actually did it. They didn't even hurt me. I did that to myself, all by myself. I didn't need any help. This whole thing is just an illusion. Because I don't want to look into the whole question of, I did get hurt. And I don't want to understand it. I don't want to disidentify from all the lies that are being told about it. I don't want to see it for myself. So I'll just take this stock, ready answer that the world has given me, that you could have done differently, and for some reason or another chose to mistreat me. Now you're to blame and you owe me, and so on and so on. And that just isn't the way things are.
Did I hear you say on an old tape, I trust you to be you?
It's the only version of trust that ever makes sense to me. That's exactly right, yes. It is the only meaning of trust that makes sense to me. Because the meaning that human beings use for the word is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because what it says is, I trust you to live up to my ideals. Why? I can't. I've had a hell of a time doing it myself. Why should I trust that you can? And then you fail and I go cuckoo? That's the weirdest definition of trust. I don't want to play that game. But I kind of like not walking around being defensive all the time and having to, be getting ready to attack. So I sort of decided to change my idea of trust. Because I really didn't want to have to not trust anyone all the time. That's sort of annoying too. It's just as annoying as trusting them to do the impossible and then getting upset when they don't. So I thought, well, what if I just sort of trust them to do the only thing that's going to happen anyway? Then I get to live as